Welcome to Sports Kid, Drama Kid. I'm Jim. I'm the Sports Kid.
I'm Andi. I'm the Drama Kid. And today, Jim,
Yes.
we have a big announcement.
We do.
Next week on Monday, starting our off week where we usually don't release an episode, we are putting out our very first Patreon exclusive episode.
Yes. And if you go to the description of this episode or any of our social media accounts, we'll be posting about it, you can find a link to the Sports Kid, Drama Kid Patreon. Over on Patreon, for a small monthly donation, you'll get access to an extra episode each month, which you can listen to through Patreon. We're working on some fun stuff over there. You can listen to the bonus episodes right on Patreon where you subscribe, but they also offer ways to put our bonus feed right into your podcast feed with an RSS feature. And I think they actually also have sort of a Spotify integration now too. So if you listen there, you can get it right in your Spotify feed. Patreon will tell you how to do that, but feel free to let us know if you have any trouble and we'll try to walk you through getting our bonus episodes onto your podcast player.
Yes, please personally reach out to us with your IT issue.
Well, you know, if people are struggling,
we'll help
we will
you.
help to an extent.
Jim will help you, yes.
So this is how we're planning to keep the show going. So yes, you're getting that bonus episode, but also you're just helping us make the regular 2 episodes a month show.
Because you may not know this. This is our apartment.
It is. We can't thank you enough in advance if you do choose to go over there and subscribe. The links to that, again, be in the descriptions. And we'll save our other regular plugs for the end and get right into the episode.
Here we go.
Y'all ready for this? So, Andi, today, after a couple football episodes in a row, if you're listening chronologically, which you may not do, we have a basketball episode.
Yay.
Yeah. And I got the idea for this basketball episode because the FIBA World Cup of Basketball is happening this summer. And it's sort of an international basketball tournament.
It's funny because I had never heard FIBA before. So the first time you said that, I was like, is that like fake FIFA?
Well, it comes from sort of a similar origin.
Right.
Anyway, all that to say, that's not really what we're talking about today, the World Cup or the Olympics. Those are going to be future things, and they are very cool. We'll talk about some of that stuff, but not these current ones. Today we're going back, and we're going to talk about Lithuanian basketball. Yeah, what do you know about Lithuanian basketball?
I don't know much of anything. Jim has a shirt that is from the attic in my childhood home in Pennsylvania, because as I've previously mentioned, when I was like very little, my dad briefly worked as the marketing director for the Philadelphia 76ers. And we still have some like leftover swag that's just been like sitting in the attic for 30 years. And so one of my recent trips home was devoted to helping my parents like clear out some stuff from the attic and the garage and closets and what have you. So I was in the attic with my dad and we discovered this like box that had like duffel bags and backpacks, and there were some shirts in there, and I brought one home for you, and you love that shirt and wear it all the time. And you were like, I like this shirt because this is from 30 years ago and hasn't been like shrunk in the washing machine and like actually has like the genuine,
I love that.
Genuine correct t-shirt size. That
like 90s XL cut is great.
Yeah, because you always complain because you're a tall guy. You're like, the shirts are too short these days.
Yeah, too short, too like tight.
Yeah, so you were like, I love the way this fits. And then I was like, oh, well, then for your next like birthday or Christmas present, I'm going to buy you a shirt from that time that hopefully wasn't shrunk. And so I was like searching all over Depop and I came across, I was like, what is this like tie-dye skeleton Lithuanian, what is this? And then you're going to get into this, I'm sure, so I'm not going to spoil anything, but that is the only thing I know about it. Was like, I saw a t-shirt that I was like, it's a tie-dye t-shirt and there's a skeleton dunking a basketball on it. And it's like hundreds or thousands of dollars to buy this shirt. And Jonah Hill has one and then he wore in like a paparazzi picture. That's the only thing I know about Lithuanian basketball.
That's kind of an amazing setup of just random facts and info that you know.
That's, if you ask me to describe anything to you, you will get an assortment of random facts and information in no logical order.
So the best thing about what you just said is all of those things will sort of come to light throughout this story, and they will make sense. But right now they don't.
So it's like the beginning of a PowerPoint. I said all the bullet points, and now we're going to like deep dive into each one.
Just don't fall asleep halfway through, please. All right. So Lithuania and history of Lithuania.
Oh, amazing.
I watched a documentary for this episode, among other research, and that documentary is called The Other Dream Team. I just want to mention it up top because you can find it on YouTube and go watch it yourself if you want to get this whole story in a documentary form. But just wanted to mention it because I will reference it. But anyway, Lithuania. I'm not an expert at all on this, but I do want to give a little bit of background so that we can have more context for the episode.
Sure.
I first wanted to point out Lithuania on a map and just show you in case you don't know where it is.
I definitely don't know where it is. I'm very bad at geography.
So
like
Lithuania is actually, currently in the news a lot lately because it's right next to Russia and Belarus. And north of Belarus, and Belarus is north of Ukraine. So yeah, Lithuania right here by Latvia, Poland, Estonia, Belarus.
There was a time, I am ancestrally from Eastern Europe, Bessarabia, which is now Ukraine and Moldova on my mom's side. And then we thought on my dad's side that we were from Lithuania and or Poland because there is a small part where they touch. I think we're still unclear on that.
Okay. We'll get to ancestry of Andy's family at some point on the show. So only 3 million or so people live there.
That's such a small country. Oh my God.
Yeah. From 1918 to 1940, Lithuania was an independent nation. During World War II, it was occupied by Soviets, Nazi Germany, and then Soviets again.
Ooh, what a really bad, what is it, a hat trick when something happens 3 times?
Yeah. 3 bad goals. So eventually, it became a de facto Soviet communist society after World War II. And only gained its independence again in 1990.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
In the early 2000s, it became a member of the EU and then NATO, and then finally sort of solidified its place as a more independent nation and ally to the West. Yeah.
Cool.
So that's sort of a little background there. So very tumultuous history of being sort of a chip or pawn in war.
Classic Eastern European story.
Yeah. Before we go any further and sort of get more into that, I did want to show you a real quick video of the official animal of Lithuania because I know how much you love wildlife.
I do love wildlife.
And animals. And the official bird of Lithuania is the white stork.
Oh.
And I found a little video on it that I just thought was like too good not to play. So
I'm so excited.
It's an AP archive little mini story on the storks in Lithuania.
Summer in Lithuania, and the living is good if you're a stork. Oh, there is the occasional indignity like being banded, but even then there's a chance to express your feelings and plenty of time afterwards to unruffle your feathers. The stork is the national bird in Lithuania, and ornithologists say that it's doing very nicely. Mr. and Mrs. Stork have been busy. There are at least 2 or 3 baby storks in every nest.
Oh my God, look
In
at that
marked
long
contrast
neck.
to Western Europe, where the stork has almost vanished from its traditional breeding grounds. The thriving population in Lithuania has created quite a flap.
Oh my God, there's so many puns.
The whole family will fly the nest at the end of September, bound for Africa for the winter.
They have such long legs. They're so cute.
They're storking. Those legs are storking. So that's the white stork of
Now
Lithuania.
they're going to deliver all the babies. I'm kidding. I know where babies come from.
That is actually part of the reason why it's the national bird is because it is a symbol of birth.
Uh-huh. People love birth.
Yeah, they really do.
It's very important to them.
Anyway, so Lithuanians started playing basketball in the 1920s.
Okay.
Playing against other countries who were starting basketball programs. But there wasn't a lot of expert coaching or basketball knowledge because basketball was invented in the 1890s in America by James Naismith. And I won't go into like a History Channel.
That's the peach basket thing, right?
Yeah. You initially shot balls into peach baskets.
Yes.
Then they had to grab them out every time when you scored. And then they were like, oh, we should cut a hole in the bottom. And that's basketball.
I love that there was a long enough period of time where they hadn't cut a hole in the bottom.
Yeah.
Like that's...
They got it out with like a tool every time, like a giant sort of ball fetcher.
That's so funny.
So yeah, even 30 years after the sport started, it had spread to other parts of the world, but not like very much. You know, it's kind of like, I guess, soccer in the U.S.
Sure.
Starting way after it's already popular in other places. In 1935, Lithuania started to hold a World Lithuanian Congress in order to promote Lithuanian culture by inviting native Lithuanians from around the world back to their country of origin.
Like a homecoming.
Yeah. The following year, as part of this Congress, some Lithuanian American athletes came over and they actually stayed in Lithuania to teach basketball.
That's so cute.
Yeah,
I love that.
they knew more and were better. So they sort of fielded a team and were learning from these Lithuanian American players some secrets and strategies of the game that they didn't know or hadn't been taught by anyone. And a couple of those players even joined the team as sort of like player coaches.
That's so cute.
So in 1936, Lithuania joined FIBA so they could take part in international competitions and sort of be recognized as a nation, have a national team. And FIBA is the International Basketball Federation. So kind of like FIFA, but it's in French. So FIBA, Fédération Internationale de Basketball. At the 1936 Olympics, basketball was an official Olympic sport for the first time.
Oh, wow.
And the U.S. won the gold medal with a bunch of college star players that were featured on the roster. One of those stars was a man named Frank Lubin.
Okay.
Lubin was a 6'7" forward who played for UCLA, and his parents were Lithuanian immigrants living in L.A.
Oh, wow.
So after the 1936 Olympics, Lithuania invited Lubin to their country to be the head of basketball for the nation and the national team, and he did it.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's cool.
They took the sort of best player in America that they had a tie to.
And there was no reason for him not to do that because it's not like the NBA existed.
Yeah, he's like, well, this is a thing to do.
Yeah.
So in 1937, Lithuania, coached by Lubin, won the Eurobasket title, which is another sort of European league, with a number of Lithuanian American players leading the way that he sort of brought over.
That's cool.
Following the final victory over Italy in the 1937 Eurobasket, the famous Lithuanian tenor Kipras Petrauskas. Have you heard of him?
Like singer?
Yeah.
No, I'm not familiar.
He interrupted his performance at the State Theater to joyfully announce the triumph of the national basketball team. The crowd then rose to their feet and together sang the Lithuanian national anthem.
That is so cute. So he was literally in the middle of like, I don't know, like an aria or something. And it's like, by the way, everyone. Imagine
this being interrupted by a cheer for the basketball team.
Oh, you have the clip queued up.
Oh. He's singing La Donna Immobile.
Yeah. Basketball.
And then he finished that, and then everyone was like, hey, by the way, we just won in basketball. Let's all cheer.
Oh my God, that crowd probably was losing their minds.
That was cool at the time.
Yeah.
Kipras Petrauskas.
It's cool now if you're cool.
Yeah, I mean, he really held out that note.
It had a lot of dynamics in it too. You see how he got really loud and then he got really soft.
Yeah, apparently he's one of the most famous tenors of all time. So
And I was a really lazy classical voice student.
So 2 years later, in 1939, it's like a 2 years between type of thing. Lithuania hosted Eurobasket and again won that competition.
Amazing.
This time, Lubin was on the team as a player coach. Lubin was sort of the de facto MVP of Eurobasket in 1939. However, he was unable to receive the award because he was taller than 6'3". And FIBA had a rule at the time which prohibited the MVP award to be given to players at such a height.
Meaning like it's easier for them to be good at basketball because they're so tall?
Yes.
That is insane given today.
I wrote down, funny how this would limit almost all NBA players from being MVP now.
I was about to say like 6'3" is like not that tall in
I kind of went
basketball
down
now.
a rabbit hole, and there's like 3 players below 6 feet currently in the NBA. There are a few 6'3", like there are people 6'2",
Yeah.
6'3" guards, but not even that many.
Wow, that's really, really funny. You could have won it. You're 6'3".
Yeah, I could have just won it.
I could have won it too because I'm 5'3".
But yeah,
And
I
there was
said,
no rule about being too short.
no. I had written down that it's sort of a weird anti-tall bias because being tall was kind of seen as cheating by the rule makers or something of this tournament.
I mean, I understand the sentiment of it because it's like being tall is an advantage in basketball, but it is sort of funny to look at it now because it's like, yeah, being tall is an advantage in basketball. It's also like if you're not tall enough, it's like a barrier to entry. Like you have to be tall.
Yeah. Now it's like you just have to be like, yes, basketball being tall is an advantage. And so we're going to get tall people.
Right. And there have been plenty of, correct me if I'm wrong, there have been a bunch of really tall basketball players who their main skill is tall.
Being tall.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. They just go, hey, that guy's tall.
Right.
We're going to make him into a center.
Right.
And try to see how that
Like
goes.
has no other like really that great basketball skills,
Yeah.
but is tall.
Yeah. There's a lot of that. So they won the 1939 Eurobasket again, which is very cool. Even though Lubin couldn't be the MVP because he was too tall.
So strange.
So then, though, also in 1939, World War II breaks out.
Right. I forgot about, history.
Wars. And Lubin flees Lithuania before it's invaded by Russia. And he returned home to California because that's where he grew up and played for UCLA. Now in Lithuania, because of what he did there, he's referred to as the father of Lithuanian basketball for his contributions to the game and for coming over, teaching them basketball, playing on those championship teams.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, very cool story. And he's like a legend. Like he is Ben Franklin. He is whatever. Like he's
Like Ben Franklin and Michael Jordan together, though.
Yes. All right. So World War II's happening. And during Soviet occupation, Lithuanians had to play for Russia. Play for like the USSR.
It makes sense, but that sucks.
Yeah. And they actually provided some of the best players to Russia
Yeah, I'm sure.
throughout all of those years. So fast forwarding all the way to 1988.
Okay.
The Lithuanian players are playing for Russia. And they play in the 1988 Olympics.
So they played for Russia for a long time.
Yes. They were considered USSR, Soviet, like a Soviet state.
Yeah.
So all their players were included in the Russian players, or, the Russian team often in the Olympics was just titled like untitled team because they're like committed all these violations and things. They like didn't even often go as Russia in a lot of these.
That's still happening with the Olympics.
Yeah. So in 1988, playing for Russia, these Lithuanian players, 4 of them were like starters on the Lithuanian team, won the Olympics for Russia.
Really?
Yeah. And in 1990, 2 years after, Lithuanians gained independence from Russia.
Wait a minute. So like my personal knowledge of basketball and the Olympics is that the U.S. just dominates every year.
They have more recently in general.
But like in 1988, they did not.
They did not. They were good, but the U.S. didn't start putting pros and like their best talent in for a
gotcha. Okay. Because they were not like this. They were probably like, this is not as important to us as the NBA is. I see.
It just wasn't the reverence right away for being on the Olympic U.S. team.
Gotcha.
Anyway, but that doesn't really take away from the fact that the USSR won the Olympics led by these Lithuanian players playing for a nation that caused chaos in the region for almost all of their lives. So, you know, cool that they won, but they were mad about it.
Yeah, I would imagine that brings up some very complicated feelings.
Yes. Two of these players were named Šarūnas Marčiulionis and Arvydas Sabonis.
Okay.
Both of these guys would go on to play in the NBA.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Marčiulionis did so first by playing with the Golden State Warriors in 1989. He was the first Lithuanian player in the NBA and the first European player to play significant minutes in the NBA in general. I'll play a little clip about Marčiulionis in the NBA.
Šarūnas Marčiulionis had a brief yet impactful NBA career, 4 of his 7 seasons as a Warrior. Shot he made. There's a
my. Look at Marčiulionis is going behind the back. Incredible.
He's
As
really
one of the
good.
first European players to make it big in the NBA, Marčiulionis was instrumental in the globalization of basketball. The Lithuanian averaged nearly 15 points a game as a key cog during the Run TMC days, playing alongside Hardaway, Richmond, and Mullen. Known for his brute strength and defensive prowess, Chris Mullen shares this anecdote.
Šarūnas, no one wanted to guard him. You know, you had to guard. He'd hurt you when he was on offense. And in one game, Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan, someone was on the free throw. I was at half court with both of them. And they were arguing who was guarding Šarūnas. And Michael's like, I'm not guarding him. Not that he couldn't guard him, he just didn't want to get run over by him. You know, he had those meat hook hands. You know, when you drive by, he just, you know, most guys smack the ball. He just go like this and take it from you, like candy from a baby.
Wow.
Before a leg injury caused him to miss a year and a half, the swingman finished runner-up in 1992 for 6th Man of the Year.
Anyway, that's Šarūnas.
He's really
Marčiulionis.
good.
Yeah, he was incredible.
Wow.
I mean, he won the Olympics.
He does that thing that basketball players do that always impresses me so much when it's like they just have it in one hand. They just like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
All the way in.
Like
yeah.
it just kind of seems like they're like, you know, tossing a crumpled up piece of paper in a trash can, like that sort of like ease.
Yep. The other guy, Arvydas Sabonis, would go on to play for the Portland Trail Blazers.
Oh, nice.
But not until 1995
Oh.
due to rules and regulations. And Sabonis was already 30 by the time he got to the NBA.
What rules and regulations?
Rules and regulations coming from Lithuania, Soviet sort of rules.
I
Like,
see.
we can't let you play over there
Huh.
kind of rules. So some say Sabonis would be considered like one of the best big men to ever play in the NBA if he had actually played during his prime.
Oh, because he was already older by the time he
Yeah.
got to America. Okay.
He was a center. He was 7'3". I guess he was like fundamentally perfect, and he was almost like Jokic is doing right now.
Yeah.
But like maybe a more athletic Jokic, like more like running up and down. But he got injured a lot because he's tall,
Yeah.
knees and things. And by the time
Knees and things.
by the time he got to the NBA, he was often compared to like a mummy, wrapped up and walking slow, but still super effective.
Yeah.
Because he's tall and really skilled, but not nearly as agile.
Yeah. When you're tall, head, shoulders, knees, and toes,
They start to give out.
they really do.
Head, shoulders, knees, and toes.
toes.
Ouch. Is what a big center in the NBA does quite often.
That is really interesting because I've never heard his name before. Not that if we're talking about people who have heard names of athletes, I'm not one of them. But for as good as he was, like, and the impact that he made, he is definitely not a household name.
No. So Arvydas Sabonis was actually drafted by the Trailblazers, but like before he could play. Like he was drafted and then like there was a bunch of red tape and then he finally got to play.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
So in 1991, the Olympic Committee welcomed back Lithuania to its roster of nations after being, you know, not a nation.
What year did they become a nation again?
90.
90. Okay.
So 1 year after, they were like, well, we'll let you back in. We know you're good as a nation and you want to be recognized as such.
Oh my God. That must have been a really, really exciting time for people in Lithuania.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's an exciting time when you're not under communist
Oppression.
forced rule, but also basketball.
Also basketball. Hey, we can play. So Sabonis and Marčiulionis worked with their agents after the Lithuanian teams, reinstated, to find more Lithuanian American players to sort of fill that team again. Since they were newly independent and Soviet Russia was squeezing them financially to try to force, them out of independence, just like the country in general, like they're independent, but they just came out from under this, superpower.
For a
so
really
they're basically
long time.
saying, okay, you want to be independent, like we're not going to help you figure it out. So they don't have any resources.
And they're a small country. Yeah.
Lithuania didn't have the budget for international basketball, equipment, travel, any of that. And it turns out when you're trying to have, water, food, and places to live and a functioning government, basketball isn't the first priority.
Sure.
But for Lithuania, basketball was a close second to all those things.
Well, I mean, anything that sort of boosts morale and like national pride in that way probably actually does. I mean, it helps the economy, I'm assuming.
Yeah. I think it was a big part of, joy.
Yeah, of course.
In this country.
And you need that at that time, I would imagine.
So Lithuania had the players and the basketball tradition, but they needed the money in order to play in international qualifiers and ultimately like Olympic competition. This is where Marčiulionis hit up his longtime friend Donnie Nelson. Donnie was the son of Warriors coach Don Nelson. So when he's playing over in America as like the first Lithuanian American player for the Golden State Warriors, Don Nelson's his coach. Donnie is the son of the coach, and he becomes friends with Marčiulionis. Donnie agrees to become an assistant coach for the Lithuanian national team.
Cute.
Yeah. But he also agreed to help Marčiulionis travel around the Bay Area and ask for money, like somebody might do with their new app that tells you, like how long your plants will live and when they need water, or like another chat app that's guaranteed to 10x productivity in the workplace. But instead it was, can you help us play basketball?
Oh my God. See, my brain went to when you had to do like school fundraisers. And you'd have
like
to
candy
go
bars?
door to door and be like, do you want to buy wrapping paper from
I don't
me?
know. What else did you have to sell?
Do you want to buy wrapping paper from a child? I had to sell wrapping paper. What else did I have to
M&Ms,
sell?
peanut M&Ms.
I never sold candy because I think candy was more of a sports team thing. I might be wrong about that. I remember wrapping paper. I remember like frozen pizza kits were a big one. And then like, maybe like cheesecakes or something. Like it was like frozen gourmet foods and wrapping paper. And then like, and that was for the school. And then for like the musicals, I had to just sell like ads in the program.
Okay. And you went door to door for this.
Well, not so much for the ads in the program. The ads in the program, I think like my parents just like called their friends and were like, Andy's going to be in a musical. Do you want to buy an ad?
Yeah.
But you were supposed to go to like local businesses and stuff. The wrapping paper, I do remember a little bit of door to door because I was like, I could get a CD player if I sell enough wrapping paper. And then I very quickly was like, or I can just ask for a CD player for Hanukkah and sell a couple things of wrapping paper to my parents and my grandma, and that'll be the end of that.
Funny story about CD players. In this documentary, they talked a lot about how Lithuanian players, when they would come over to the U.S., would bring back CD players, TVs, radios, things that like that of that nature that were available in the U.S. Fancy jeans, anything that wasn't available in Lithuania, and sell it for a markup of like 20 times.
I think that still happens actually.
And that was how they actually like supported themselves.
Wow.
Was like selling American goods.
I mean, I think that still happens in a lot of countries, obviously, because capitalism and consumerism is thriving
It's
here.
one thing that we're doing. We're doing it.
It's one thing that we're doing.
Anyway, so yeah, they're schlepping their wares around the Bay Area.
Wow. But
their wares are, let us play basketball as Lithuania. So Marčiulionis and Nelson start taking meetings with anyone who would listen to their story. A local beat writer in the Oakland area named George Shirk was covering this story in general. And he reported on Donnie Nelson accepting the assistant coaching job for Lithuania. Like, that's cool that he did that. He did a follow-up piece where he talked about the Lithuanian money situation in more detail, sort of making the case for like, hey, these guys need this funding and like, you know, if anyone can help them. And one group of people in particular had a strong response after reading that article. And in order to introduce you to that group of helpful folks, I'm going to take a brief detour back to my own childhood.
I have an inkling about what is about to happen, and I'm very excited about it.
All my life, my family had big, boxy Buick cars. My parents had a thing for these cars because they were comfortable enough to fit a family of 4. They were reliable, and you could buy them used at a reasonable price. The Buick. We had a few different Buicks over the years, but the one that stuck around the longest was my dad's silver 1988 Buick Electra. My dad got this car used in like the late 90s or so, and it remained in the family until well after I left for college in 2007. This thing was massive. You could barely park it in a normal parking spot. The interior was a plush burgundy with power windows, doors, mirrors, and seats. It had a non-retractable leather top and a clean pinstripe running down the side.
What does a non-retractable top mean?
So, you know how like a leather top you might think would roll back like a convertible? This one didn't.
All right, that's what I thought.
It was just leather for the look of leather on the top. In order to keep the car running and drivable in a more modern world, my dad made improvements by getting the interior replaced and cleaned, the engine reworked, and a modern CD player and speaker stereo system added to the dashboard. If you'd have put rims on this thing, it would have fit into any rap video of the era. But instead, my dad drove it to work at his accounting firm for years.
Which is like 2 miles away from your house.
So close. By the time I was a senior in high school, my dad had switched to a newer, more reliable Mazda. So I drove the Buick Electra to school. Frustratingly, my brother got it for all of his driving high school years, which is just a classic annoying brother thing. Sorry, Dave, but I had to ride the bus or call a friend until my senior year, and you got to drive the car as soon as you could drive. That's annoying little brother shit.
That happened with, I'm the younger sibling, and my grandmother's champagne Oldsmobile, my sister only got for like part of the time when she was in high school and college, and it was just there when for
and
me.
That's your car now. Yeah. Ugh. All of my friends referred to this thing as a boat, which it was. I didn't have a license to drive a UPS truck, but driving the Electra gave me a pretty good idea of what it might be like. It took a long time to get up to speed. The brakes were really loose, and the power steering would go out on the highway sometimes, which I guess builds character. And when I drove it, power steering or not, I used the added CD player quite often. Windows down in the back roads of Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, Blink-182 and Vanessa Carlton blasting on the stereo. But sometimes I'd forget my wallet of CDs or my tape deck to iPod converter.
Oh my God,
Remember
yes.
those?
I do remember those. You had to like find an empty radio station.
Yeah, something like that. And I had to listen to the radio or to the CDs that my dad had in the car. And for most of my young life, the only CDs my dad reliably had in the car were volume after 6 CD volume of live recordings of Grateful Dead concerts, known to Deadheads as Dick's Picks albums. I looked it up. A guy named Dick who oversaw the Grateful Dead tape vault picked his favorite Dead concerts and put them on CD. I did not know this until I looked it up for this show.
I was about to ask you, and I'm so glad that the answer is like a guy named Dick picked some stuff.
I can't stress how many of these there seemingly were, and I listened to all of them. Usually, the lead guitarist for the Dead, Jerry Garcia, would perform a masterclass in jam band jammery, going for 20 minutes on one winding solo at a time. Other times, he'd play for the same amount of time, but you could tell he was on too many mushrooms to get through Terrapin Station without a half dozen psilocybin-induced tempo changes. By listening to hours of asymmetrical jamming, I grew to like the Dead, and I started to relate to the Beanie Baby Peace Bear that was perched in the back window of the Electra by my dad.
God.
A groovy relic of the late 90s Beanie Baby fad. Right next to a sticker of a red and blue skull with a lightning bolt running down the middle. 2 subtle symbols of my dad's Grateful Dead fandom.
Wow.
And it was that same great American band, the Grateful Dead, who read George Shirk's article about Lithuanian basketball on November 5th of 1991 in an Oakland, California newspaper, and they wanted to help.
I was so swept away by the majesty of that story that I forgot that you were introducing me to who helped the Lithuanian basketball team. I literally was like, how are we going to get back? That's okay. Well, that explains the t-shirts I talked about at the beginning.
Yes, and we're about to get into that. I'm going to play a little clip coming out of that story.
One of the local beat writers, George Shirk, wrote a little story on our plight, and that story was read by some of the members of the Grateful Dead, and that's how that whole thing started.
I wanna tell you how it's gonna be.
The Grateful Dead were big basketball fans.
You're gonna give it your love to me.
Garcia and Bob Weir, Mickey Hart, Bill Kreutzmann, and Phil Lash, they're sitting around saying, we can't just let our friends down like this.
No, our love will not fade away.
Mes Detroite turėjom žaisti rungtynės
We had to play a game in Detroit. And the day before, the Grateful Dead had a concert there. And Donnie said, let's go, because the Grateful Dead are from the Bay Area. Their music was different, and there were flickering lights. And an interesting smell in the air throughout the arena. I wonder what that was. And I thought, how are we going to play tomorrow with that smell in the arena?
We sit down, and Jerry sits there, and he, lights up what looked like a cigar. It's hard to function in that environment, to be honest with you. I'm just trying to think straight, right? And he's like, what you guys did in Lithuania was inspirational, and we're all about freedom and celebration, and that's what you guys are all about. And basically, we want to help you guys.
How are we going to play basketball and when the arena smells like this? I'll tell you, you're going to play real smooth.
Real smooth and slow.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
So the Dead cut them a check, and they also sent along a box of tie-dye Grateful Dead t-shirts, tank tops, and shorts that were red, green, and yellow with a skeleton dunking a basketball on them, along with Lithuania written on them.
They're
And
cool shirts.
These are the shirts you mentioned up top.
Yes.
That Jonah Hill was wearing
in some paparazzi picture of him like going to get coffee or something.
And I'll show you these shirts right here because I got a little photo if you're watching.
They're so cool.
And these are like warm-ups and shirts that they wore around the premises at the Olympics, which was also funded by the Dead. Like the bus and the trip and everything was also funded in a lot part due to the Grateful Dead. And they sent along these sort of warm-ups, and they wore them everywhere when they were over there for the Olympics.
That is so cool.
Yeah, they were designed by Greg Spears, the same guy who designed the branding and logos for the Grateful Dead.
Okay.
And they were so out there for a national basketball team that it actually really put the team on the map when they traveled to Barcelona for the 1992 Olympics.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, that is not the vibe that you typically get from like old school NBA gear.
Or any NBA gear, unless it's like a current NBA and we're having a jersey night where we're doing something crazy.
We're doing crazy jerseys.
Miami Vice throwback pastels or whatever.
That's so fun. I was about to say, I wonder, because I'm not good with dates. I was like, is this around the time that like the Grateful Dead and Bill Walton were like best friends?
Oh, yeah.
Have we talked about Bill Walton on the podcast?
We haven't really, no.
I mean, do we want to do like a very, very quick...
Yeah, Bill Walton was an NBA player, also incredible, also played for UCLA, also played for the Portland Trailblazers, like Arvydas Sabonis. And he knew Arvydas.
Oh.
And he knew the Dead personally. And so he was definitely involved in the Dead being into basketball.
Yes. Okay.
Because he was like a personal friend of the Grateful Dead. Almost more so than he was a basketball player at times.
Yes.
He was so into the band.
Well, didn't he like plan? You've told me that he like planned his NBA schedule around like going to Dead shows.
I think they said that in the documentary about
Yes.
Bill Walton, which was recently on ESPN. And you can check that out.
Bill Walton is really funny because whatever personality you think an athlete is going to have, He does not have it.
No, he almost doesn't care. He cares so much about basketball, but almost doesn't at the same time. It's very chill.
Definitely loves to smoke weed and pontificate and be in nature and loves the Grateful Dead. If you watch any like clip of him like at a Grateful Dead show, he's like, 2 feet taller than everyone else and is just like having the time of his life.
Yeah.
He's such a character.
So Bill Walton was sort of the connection of professional basketball to the Dead.
I just love imagining like a meeting of the minds that's like Donnie Nelson, Shrewdness, Bill Walton, and Jerry Garcia.
Yeah. Just an incredible room. Good rotation.
Jerry, you gotta see this guy play.
You just gotta.
I mean, he moves like a tree in the breeze.
Yes, and Arvydas Sabonis is like an antelope, galloping over the horizon and dunking left and right, hook shots flying through the air like many a stork in Lithuania. I can't do a Bill Walton impression.
No, yes, you can. You just did. It was very good.
Anyway, Bill Walton aside, Arvydas Sabonis said in the documentary that the shirts that they wore around really showed their independence from Russia because they would never have been able to wear those shirts like that before with Russian occupation. And so it was like a point of pride to be like radical and weird. The team wore them everywhere around Barcelona for warm-ups, press conferences, off days, and the design became the favorite souvenir for the 92 Barcelona Olympics that everyone wanted.
I don't doubt it. I want one now.
Yeah, you can get them, and he's reprinting them now for like $50-$60. So
my birthday is in July. If you didn't know. Next year.
Mine's in December, so we have ideas. So the Lithuanian team had a magical run in the Olympic tournament.
So you said Barcelona. And I remember Barcelona being the dream team from the U.S. year.
Yes, it is, and that's where I'm going. So the Lithuanian team had this magical run, getting all the way to the semifinals of the knockout stage, where they would play the U.S. Dream Team, the best team to ever be fielded by the U.S. We will do a Dream Team episode, I'm sure, but not today. They lost badly to the U.S., but they enjoyed meeting all of their American basketball heroes, because
including
Michael Jordan, Larry Bird,
Charles Barkley,
Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, John Stockton, Chris Mullin,
Scottie Pippen?
Think Scottie Pippen, Magic Johnson.
Oh, right, yeah.
Christian Laettner, Clyde Drexler. So yeah, the best team I think we've ever sent.
Including teams we've sent to space.
Yes, the best team we've sent anywhere as a country is the 92 Dream Team in basketball. Anywhere. I'm talking anywhere. I'm talking government. I'm talking military. I'm talking
cabinets, astronauts.
I'm talking foreign ambassadors. No one better than the 92 Dream Team.
There has never been a better group of people to go anywhere.
No, not from the U.S. Not from the U.S.
You might be right about that.
So they lost to the U.S. in the semifinal.
Sure.
Which is already amazing. This team that was just not a team 2 years ago is in the semifinals, which shows just how good Lithuania was and how much Lithuania was supporting the USSR teams when they were good.
Carrying it on their backs.
Yeah. So they lost that game. But that wasn't actually what they were most concerned about. They knew they would probably lose to the Dream Team. Everyone thought they would. In the bronze medal game, which was played, because they lost against the other team that lost, Lithuania played the unified team.
Oh,
otherwise known as the former USSR, who 4 years ago, they had just won the Olympics for. 2 years ago, they had just separated from.
So they're playing former teammates on a formerly oppressive team that they were forced to be a part of.
Yes.
Oh, that is so dramatic.
So dramatic. So the whole country back in Lithuania is watching this game. It was bigger than the game against the Dream Team because the unified team had beat Lithuania in the group stages of this tournament, and they really wanted to beat them given all of the history.
Yeah, it means way more to them than just a basketball game.
It was watched by everyone in Lithuania. They were basically playing for their freedom and their legitimacy as a country.
And they're watching on TVs that the Lithuanian basketball team themselves brought back from America.
Yeah, Šarūnas Marčiulionis delivered by hand. And they were literally playing against their oppressor they were just freed from in the biggest sport and cultural thing that they had as a newly free nation. And they won the game 82-78.
Hell yeah.
In the locker room after, it was crazy. The president of Lithuania was there, and the players all gathered to sing the national anthem of Lithuania. Arvydas.
Wow. It's hard to repeat, hard to explain.
Marčiulionis shows up and he says, the Grateful Dead believed in us when we were nobody, and we're going to pay a tribute to them.
They're all coming out in their tie-dye
Lithuanian
shirts.
crew just off the side door here, just kind of parading in. Looked like they came from a Grateful Dead concert. Not in a straight line.
They all fanny packs.
Totally free.
And they go to get their bronze medal.
The rock and roll Grateful Dead team, and they're wearing tie-dye on the medal stand. It was one of the few priceless moments in sporting rock and roll history.
And there they are on the medal stand getting their bronze medal after beating the former USSR who they separated from, wearing Grateful Dead tie-dye t-shirts, who funded their trip.
That's just the most iconic, amazing thing. How is this not a bigger story?
I don't know. I mean, there's obviously a documentary about it and it gets talked about, but I don't think as much as it should.
So cool.
And I think because it's a small country, people don't really put it together.
I mean, it's not quite an overlap between like the sports and like theater world, but it's an overlap between sports and like the music world.
Yeah.
And sports and politics and like sports and like global relations. Like it's actually like a pretty significant thing.
Yeah. So this is like the biggest thing in the country kind of ever.
Yeah.
After the Olympics in 92, Lithuanian basketball got even more popular in the country, as you can imagine. And it's sort of taken on almost a religious level of dedication in the country. In 2004, the Lithuanian team upset the USA in the Olympics, and that game became a legendary game for Lithuanians because anytime they got to play the best and beat the best, it's like an amazing happening for them because they just don't get that many opportunities.
Sure.
And only some of them get to play in the NBA and stuff like that. So they beat a pretty stacked American team, and I wanted to list some of those players who they beat. Allen Iverson, Stephon Marbury, Dwayne Wade, Carlos Boozer, Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, Emeka Okafor, Sean Marion, Amari Stoudemire, Tim Duncan, Richard Jefferson, and Lamar Odom. So
those are some big names.
The best sort of we kind of had at the time. Yeah. And that was a huge win for them. And in the doc too, people were talking about like how they would go back and watch that game over and over.
Oh my God.
As like training or like tape or also just for pride. Like people watch their big games against like big teams and really revel in them because they don't have the NBA. Even though now there are, professional European leagues that these guys play in. And that brings us to this year's 2023 FIBA World Cup, which is happening as we record this in September of 23. And in the second round of the tournament, Lithuania just beat the U.S. by playing a near perfect game.
You mentioned to me that they had won, but I didn't understand really the gravity of it because they didn't have all this context. That's crazy.
Yeah. So this is not in the locker room after beating the USSR, but this is in the escalator coming down at the FIBA World Cup in Manila last week when they beat the U.S.
Wow.
What are they wearing?
They're wearing the shirts, the tie-dye shirts.
And they're saying the Atsuva, which is Lithuania in Lithuanian.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's so cute. I love it so much.
In the current NBA, there are a number of Lithuanian players, but the three most recognizable ones are Jonas Valanciunas, who is a center for the Pelicans. Azuolas Tubelis is a forward for the Sixers. And most famously, Domantas Sabonis for the Kings, the son of Arvydas Sabonis.
I was about to say, he has the same last name.
Is a forward for the Kings and one of the NBA's best players. And Arvydas gets to see his son do what he dreamed of doing, getting to play in his prime in the NBA.
On a team that correct me if I'm wrong, is like kind of on the rise.
On the rise.
Right?
Yep.
Like the Kings haven't been good for a long time.
Haven't been good.
And they're getting better.
And DeMontis is part of the reason they're getting better.
So sweet.
And to close, I want to listen to a little bit of the Hall of Fame enshrinement speech of Arvydas Sabonis when he was inducted into the NBA or Professional Basketball Hall of Fame in 2011, where he was presented by his dear friend Bill Walton.
Oh my God.
Welcoming Arvydas to the Hall is Bill Walton from the class of 1993. Ladies and gentlemen, Arvydas Sabonis.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. Today is a very special day for me, for my country, and I'm very proud to be here. And I would like to say thank you for Hall of Fame, for my family, all family, my parents, my friends, my teammates, my coaches, and special thanks I would like to say for Portland Trail Blazers and Blazers medical team for believing in me and help me after serious injury when I have to come back to professional basketball and to be Olympic champion and to be tonight here together with Bill Walton and all of you. Thank you very much.
I love when men in a professional setting are like close friends who support each other. We don't see that enough.
Yeah. So that's the story.
That is an amazing story. I love that story.
So many turns.
So much. And it really is like, you can't write it better. Like it's like a movie.
Yeah.
Like it's so good. Like don't even bother asking me like where I would put this in media because like it's an Oscar-winning film.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I would hope they would cast with a bunch of like amazing Lithuanian actors.
Yeah. So yeah, I was enjoying, researching this and reading deeper into it the whole way.
You have such a strong connection in your family to both basketball and the Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
So like this is like really all of Jim's favorite thing.
It really is. Yeah. So yeah, that's the tale of Lithuanian basketball, and all the way from the beginning to where they are now. And like I said, there's still players in the NBA today, and it's still as popular as ever.
That's so awesome. I love that story so much. Thank you for bringing that to me. It like warmed my heart, and like it just hit all the right notes. I loved it.
Well, thank you for listening, and we hope you audience members loved that story too. If you'd like to support the show, like we said up top, we do have a Patreon launching now, and in the description you can go over there and sign up and let us know if you have IT problems.
Also, if you haven't yet, rate the show, give us a little review or rating.
Yep.
Subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on, and tell some friends about it.
That would be great. Until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye. Until next time, goodbye.